40 years ago, if I was like, I would have to go join a corporation and I would have to like figure out the whole game there and become more extroverted in order to climb the ladder. But like, yeah, the internet changed everything.
I once remember listening to a talk. It was either Brian Tracy or Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn. I used to listen a lot to these guys. And they said something about, I think it was Zig Ziglar because of his name. So he said something like, when everybody zigs, you need to zag. So it is in a way, right? In a way, you look at what most people do and you got to do the opposite. You know what I mean? Most of the time that works as a good life advice.
Yeah. I can agree with that. And some people are just more, they're built for that. You know, for me, I grew up an introvert. I was bullied. And I know I have above average intelligence, and that kind of puts you on the spot, especially in the 80s and 90s when being a nerd actually meant something. Whereas these days, you know, being a nerd, like everybody's into the MCU, everybody plays D&D. So you're not, basically everybody's a nerd now, but like I grew up in a time when being a nerd meant you got beaten up.
Right.
So it does force you to have a different perspective on the world, and I think that gives you it forces you to sag when everybody's sagging, you sag.
Yeah, almost like you rebel against the norm in a way, right?
Oh, it's also very anti-authoritarian. So like I could not deal with incompetent teachers, and that carried over to bosses. Like if you were incompetent, I would just passive aggressively just rebel.
Cause you to fire me.
I wouldn't call them fire me, but like, okay, I kind of, you know, be condescending and cause them, create trouble for them until I got transferred to a different department.
No, but I get what you're saying. I think that's a very common quality for anyone who wants to become an entrepreneur. Definitely a common quality for copywriters. For me, growing up, it was a bit different. I've always been okay with having authority over me until a certain point. Until a point I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, until I kind of started zagging when everybody was zigging. You know, everybody wanted a job. All of a sudden, I didn't want a job, and things like that. So, yeah, I think that's an important quality. I think that's an advantage. And for introverts, I think the internet really changed the game, right? Because now, as an introvert, you know, you can flourish. You can, you know, you don't have to enjoy the spotlight, but you can create this internet spotlight where you don't have to expose yourself too much.
Yo, it's Igor. I want you to have my Amazon best-selling book for free for taking the time to listen to my podcast and to watch my YouTube videos. Now, I'm not only going to give you this book for free, but I'm going to throw in about $3.2 thousand in free bonuses. Now, if you want to get this book, please click the link in the description, or you can also go to igorsbook.com. And now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you know, 40 years ago, if I was like, I would have to go join a corporation and I would have to like figure out the whole game there and become more extroverted in order to climb the ladder. But like, yeah, the internet changed everything. I mean, a lot of my early career was being on the phone, and I could be like, there's a separation. Like when I'm talking to clients and I'm selling myself, it was easier without being face to face. Because I mean, another thing that really worked against me my entire life is I still look like I'm 20 something. Like I still get ID'd. And like, it was harder to sell. Like it's easier to sell if they can't see your face. Like when you're saying, oh, I charge $15K for a sales letter. It's like, yeah, who are you?
No, I think that's a good point. I remember going to one of the first few seminars that I went to. I already had a coaching program, and at that seminar, I asked many of my coaching students to come in, and these were the people who at one point had to get on the phone with me, and I had to tell them, "Hey, I'm charging $5K or $8K for the coaching." And so there's one guy who eventually became a very big success story for me, and eventually also started his own information marketing business out of Panama. He admitted later on, he was like, dude, I remember, meeting you in person is such a different experience. I remember talking to you on the phone, and, I thought I was talking to this, to this huge authority, and I couldn't see your face, and you were like, yeah, I charge this much for coaching, and this was me just in a coffee shop with my baby face at the time. I barely had any facial hair, and pretending to be a big shot. It's I think the phone does help with that, as well as authoritative writing tone, like in your
Yeah, yeah,
emails or
yeah.
your content. That really builds you up. The other day I was listening to a Joe Rogan episode with a guy named Michael Schellenberger. He's like an authority on climate change, and he's an investigative journalist. And reading his pieces and listening to him talk about his pieces is a very different experience.
Oh yeah, what did you pick up from that?
Well, basically, they spoke about the Twitter files, and how the whole social media during COVID, how social media suppressed lots of posts and information about anti-vaccine studies, and people posting about how they didn't use the vaccine but used some other medication to get better, and things like that. They spoke about the Hunter Biden's a laptop, and how that laptop was available but was suppressed from media investigations until Biden won the election. All kinds of stuff like that. How the government, well, doing what the government does.
But what was the difference between his written and his voice? What did you find from
Yeah,
that?
so his voice, in the way he delivers his ideas and the way he talks about things, he stutters along the way, and he's trying to
Okay.
really be vanilla when he expresses an opinion, using a voice media like a podcast or a video. While in his writing, it's a little bit different. It flows differently. He can plan out his idea flow. You know what I mean? Like, so it's
So he was not a good speaker, is what you're saying. It was harder for.
yeah, I want to say that again, not without trying to offend the guy. He's still brilliant, but as a speaker, he wasn't great. In contrast to someone like Joe Rogan, who can just flow because
Well,
he's a
yeah, I
stand-up.
mean, the guy does. Yeah, exactly. Stand up, and he's been a host. And he's been on TV. Yeah, that is. I mean, if you want to talk about what's affecting communication in the modern world, that is such a huge thing that I feel like almost everyone on the planet at this point needs media training, because we're also public on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, Twitter. And most of us are not prepared for that. Whereas like celebrities and actors like Joe Rogan, they've been in front of the TV. They have a predilection to being in front of the TV camera. And on top of that, they've got the studios pay for their media training. And most of us don't. Most of us don't. And here we are pretending to be celebrities or stars, and we don't know how to censor ourselves or how to present ourselves in a way that's articulate, and also being diplomatic, knowing when to shut up and when not to keep talking. But it's interesting. It's interesting the time we live in, where everybody can point a camera to their face and they get an audience.
Yeah, at the same time, usually it's the more intelligent people who will need the media training, and they will try to not offend people, while the masses will say anything.
Yeah.
With social media kind of pushing people's voices forward, now everyone talks as if they're posting on their Facebook wall. And I think most people should put a filter of some kind on what they're saying.
Yes.
They're saying some stupid shit out there.
Yeah.